Hello, folks. This is Michael Emery with TVOI News. It is 9/11, the day of infamy, the day that we all can sit back and watch the circus in the zoo of the educated, the ill-educated, and the people that are on the fence. So, who I have today is I have Scott Bennett. Now, he's been a whistleblower for many, many years, and he's he's someone that has put it all out on the line. And then I also have Jeff Wright, that he is part of our staff, and he has done the same thing as with the NSA and naval intelligence. And then we have one of our team members, Diane Rogers, that has just the general questions that a lot of you may have to ask these gentlemen. So, hello everyone. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Michael. Good to be with you, and it's a pleasure to be with your other guests, and I look forward to a good discussion.
Okay, thank you, Scott. And hey, thanks, Jeff. Well, Scott, I heard that you were talking with somebody that everyone knows. Yeah.
Well, we've been taking this material, the military whistleblowing report to Congress about shell game, titled Shell Game, which anybody can Google and get at Amazon or the website, Shell Game by Scott Bennett. We've been taking that material to Donald Trump and Trump's people, as well as all members of Congress and the Senate. But we've taken it to Trump's people and been in conversation with his high-level executives and said, all of this material is now coming out. It was written in 2012. It's now coming out that Hillary Clinton and Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer and Covington and Burling all participated in a terrorist financing cover-up through the whistleblower Brad Birkenfeld himself in jail, through the military officer who was reporting and tasked with finding out where terrorist money sources were, throwing him in jail as well. And the two just happened to meet in prison, if you could believe that, as a godly divine intervention hand. So we've taken that story to Mr. Trump and talked to his senior people and said, what is he going to do about this? This is something that's not going away. It's coming out on the news every day. You see Hillary Clinton emails revealing it, and that's one of the reasons that they've scrambled to erase the server and all this other material, because they know the corruption on this issue alone is enough to get people shot and killed for treason, because that's exactly what it is. It's treason against our United States military service members and our contractors and the families who've lost sons and daughters to this war, and military members who've lost their lives and their limbs and their families. All of that could have been avoided. And ISIS, as we know it now, could have been defunded, at least through the banks that we discovered. And you maybe not even have a lot of the ISIS refugees that are flooding Europe, because the whole dynamic would have been changed. If you basically cut off a fuel supply into a vehicle, it runs out of gas, it stops, it disassembles. But we have been allowing a continual pump of gas into the tank of these terrorists, these ISIS, ISIL, Al-Qaeda mercenary contractors with CIA and Mossad and other agencies. We've been filling their tank nonstop since 2012. And that's treason. That's a crime. That's what we want Mr. Trump to come out and give a public notice about, that he's just been given this material. He just discovered it. He's outraged by it, that every American citizen should be outraged by, and he's stepping up to the plate to demand it be investigated. That's what we've asked him to do. We'll see if he does it. But if he doesn't, then the American people are going to be against him. If he does do it, I think he will be embraced and sent higher even than where he is right now. Or he could fall apart. This is such an explosive issue that people are I mean, it very easily could cause a French Revolution in this country when people see just how corrupt, not ignorant, but how corrupt the highest levels of government and the military are. And in fact, I'll even say the courts. I just got a communication from a Judge Virginia Hernandez Covington in Florida that I've been petitioning to go back into court and have all of this stuff re-examined in a criminal court. And this judge, who is tied with the Eric Holder, Lanny Brewer Justice Department, has denied my motion again and again and again to try and cover this whole issue up. So now I'm taking it to the appeals court and the Supreme Court, if need be, as well as file civil action. So the fight is on, and it's getting very white hot. So these are certainly exciting times.
Certainly, I think I think he's dead on, and what this is indicative of is really a much larger, broader scope cancer that exists across our government at this point. It's irrespective of party and political ideology. We have this problem on the left and the right that are into this game. It revolves around the money. On one side, it revolves around the fake monetary system that's been set up and manipulated over the last several decades, and it's involved with the people who benefit most off of this operation, which are at the highest levels of the government. And I mean, the stuff that this pretty much complements and ties into much of the things that we've exposed through TVOI news that's going on in the Clinton email scandal, Benghazi, Fast and Furious. All of these things are all what people that in the general population and were at a disadvantage up until very recently. And what happened was these things all used to appear just like they do now as independent information smokestacks, if you will. But what's happened with the internet, what's happened with services like TVOI and the internet and the and all of the whistleblowers who are coming forward now, like Robert Plumley and myself and Mr. Bennett and many others. If people are now starting to be able to look at the fabric of what's been happening here and see how to connect the dots and how the fabric fits together and what the implications are for our country. And of course, the implications, as we see as this dribbles out day after day after day, are very dire for our country, for our republic. And what is most disappointing at this point is it still seems to be very hard to get people out of their little cubbyhole and stand up and say we are, to their local congressional delegation, to their local political operatives, to their local and state party level officials that many of whom are all part of the same. It's part of the same game in this intricate web. We're tired of it. We're done with this. This is beyond the pale, and these people are going to be accountable at some point, and we're going to attack this problem with a vengeance and reorganize and reform this government, because, as Thomas Jefferson clearly pointed out, it is our duty to do this if we are going to continue to live in this republic. And if we don't understand the depth and the breadth of this problem soon, you'll just literally watch the republic evaporate into chaos in front of our eyes as this all flies apart like a jet engine that when the impellers explode. I mean, it's literally going to come apart in 1,000 pieces, and we're every day that goes by now, we're coming closer and closer to that point. So people have to start reacting to this information in a very positive, effective way, right from their local government on up, right through their congressional delegation and into Washington, D.C., to let these people know that we're at the end of the road, folks, and this is not going to go on anymore. We're more and more informed every day. We understand where this is going. We're connecting the dots and filling in the gaps that have never been filled in before, and we don't like what we see, and we're not going to tolerate it anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. It's a brilliant position and statement from someone who's patriotic, and every American will resonate with that spirit and will line up and follow that track. Today is a great day. Today is the day of Renaissance in America. This isn't a day of mourning. This isn't a day of remembrance. This is a day of reconvicting, as you know, that classic quote from Independence Day. Today we declare our Independence Day. Today, on September 11th, we declare that we are taking back our country from false and faulty government and cover-ups and lies and unconstitutional activity. And shell game, the material that I wrote about, that's simply the anchor point. That's simply the Utah beach to invade Normandy on, that people can hold up as their shield and say, I know about this, I know about terrorist financing, I know about Hillary Clinton's involvement, I know about Eric Holder's involvement, I know the military officer who wrote the report, and everybody in Congress and the military and the media have buried this. Only a few international media stations have had the courage to expose this and examine it, but no one else has. And every American, when they gain that momentum and start moving on the attack in that area, I think it'll give us the initiative to really reform our country, get better people running for office, and chase out these parasites who are masquerading as leaders in Congress.
Everyone that I see and everywhere I go, there's very few people that are buying the official story. There's very few people that trust this administration. Even somebody that's 92 years old does not trust this government. It is just like the world has just realized that it's round and not flat. It is a transition point, a renaissance that is transforming the world before our eyes. And Jeff, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it's once again, it's for Scott and myself, it's easy to echo across. I mean, this is the things that he and I and others that are involved in this are trying to get people to wake up about have been evident in the system for decades. It's been slowly growing like a hidden cancer across the system. It's tied into the fake money system. It's tied into the finance and budgeting process that exists between the federal governments and amongst the states, and what programs and agencies are funded that are outside of constitutional dictates. And it involves a lot of it is just what I would say is purely opportunistic gamesmanship that evolves out of a system that has so much free cash contained within it, has so little oversight by the public, so little transparency. It's become completely opaque. People, and so we've had so little visibility. As I describe in my book, The Citizen's Last Stand, when I talk about how this whole web of interconnected framework, as I call it, has come to operate. It didn't just happen overnight. This has been coming for decades, and the people have been the reason that there's two reasons that the people have been complacent up to this point. And that's primarily, first, is the ability of the fake money to keep them asleep. When you have the ability to generate endless credit, to feed to the people, to keep them in debt, and to keep them in the consumerist mode, you start to understand some of the complacency. But then on the other hand, up until very recently, their ability to control the media sources having increased to the point, we have six corporate entities that control all of the mainstream media, and behind that you have the little puppet or old media on how to get this information into the public hands. But in just the last 10 years, with the advent of the sources off of the internet and social media and all of the different outlets that there are, the chair has been knocked out from under the controlling media and the controlling elites and the people who benefit and profit from this system. It's been knocked out from under them at this point, and people are finally becoming aware, and they're hearing these alternate voices on news programs such as this and elsewhere across the internet. So they're finally getting to the point where all of a sudden it's like an awakening. And I think, people that for so long were inclined to simply accept, one, and two, say that there's nothing they can do about it, are finally realizing that yes, there is something they can do about it, and three, they have to do something about it if they care at all about the coming generations. Otherwise, they're relegating their kids and their grandkids to a system of tyrannical control, unlike anything that's ever been seen on the planet. And the only reason it will occur is out of complacency, out of simply obedience, which to me is absolutely nuts. And people, I thought for decades the adage that I heard as a kid, that if allowed unchecked, people will walk freely into the ovens and into the prisons. You think that's impossible, but yet you see it happening, and you for decades now, people have, because they're kept fat, dumb, and happy, they simply have said, "Oh, well, I'm comfortable. Why should I worry? This is freedom." Okay, what they perceive, and so they've succeeded in slowly dumbing down to the point where all of a sudden, a little more than a decade and a half ago, the internet began to emerge and began to inform people and began to generate these alternative news sources and information sources. And people are finally beginning to understand that, they are in prison and they incrementally arrive there without even realizing it, and they better do something fairly shortly. And so I think, there's a lot more of this onion that needs to be peeled back. I mean, what Scott has done, involved in, is we're just getting to the first and second layer. As I explained in my book, there are so many layers to this that have to be opened up and peeled back for the public that it's probably the rest of the decade to continue to peel this back and to then activate people to react against it. But the positive thing that's happening is the fact that that's happening, and that people are starting to come alive, and I think we're beginning to see the edges of a solution as well, multiple solutions that come from this understanding at the very local level that they can then use to begin to reorient and reform the operation of their local government and work there and eat their way right up the chain until we have retaken control of our federal government and all of its manipulations and ramifications going forward, and have a country again, have a real republic and a real country again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff. I'd like to add, Diane. We have Diane Rogers. She's one of our team leaders with TVOI News, and she has a couple of questions. Now, y'all have to excuse the audio, but Diane, do you have a question for Scott?
Well, one of the things, and that's one of the reasons I wish Larry was able to join us today, but whatever, this miscommunications part. I just found it strikingly eerie that during the Whitewater investigation, all the evidence that was compiled against the Clintons was lost in an arson fire. And now, fast forward to today, we have the Hillary's email server going blank. It just seems that she's had many years to kind of perfect her deceit, shall I say. And I was just wondering how this affects or could affect or tie into the government. I mean, they've been involved in government goes back to Nixon or maybe just a little bit before. So, I mean, their level of corruption, are they actually, I don't know, somehow involved? Or
Well, you know, one thing that's important for people to understand, and I discovered this going out to Washington, D.C. and working out in the political establishment. When I went out to Washington, D.C. in 1998, it wasn't to go get a job. It wasn't to crawl on my knees to Congress and say, would you please hire me? Or you know, any of that subservient, professional advanced degree. I didn't go out for that. I went out to start a fight. I went out to right wrongs. I went out because I was pissed off at what the Clintons were doing. It was 1998. I didn't like the liberal agenda that they had, and I had my ire up. I had my hair up. I wanted to go in and throw in my energy and my language skills and my writing and my temperament, which was to go in and clash swords. And that's just the way I was made. And I went out to Washington to do that. So that's a very different attitude than the vast 99% of people who go out to Washington have. People who go out to Washington want to go out to get a law degree, or they want to work in Congress, or they want to get into lobbying, or they want to generally get into politics, and they have a half-hearted spirit of fighting. And if you don't have a spirit of fighting, then you're morally corrupted and enslaved by the money and the power and the influence and the women and the ice cream socials and everything else that Washington throws at you. So I was inoculated from the very beginning, and I went out to Washington, and I started going on this miraculous trek that I attribute to God and having control over my life by taking me to key positions in Washington, in think tanks, in conservative Republican groups, in advanced degrees at George Mason University, and working under Francis Fukuyama, and just having an incredible journey because I was aggressive and I was always on mission. And then going into the Bush administration, and that was my first letdown because I saw people in the Bush administration were not conservative. There were a few, they were my friends, but most of them were neoconservatives. And then not even getting into the false flag events of September 11th, which I discovered much, much later. But I was duped, I was seduced, I drank the Kool-Aid when September 11th hit. And then I went into the military, into defense contractor, into fighting this enemy. And then I go in and I start fighting, and I start doing it the right way, and I know what I'm talking about. And everything that we started putting together with my team started just being thrown out or ignored or not followed. So again, we're starting to see the whole political corruption. And they weren't waging the war as they should have waged. And we all thought, this is crazy. You're telling us we're in a war, and yet you're not using the tools to win it? It was bizarre. And then I get thrown in prison for this crazy charge of not filling out a paperwork contract properly and calling it a false statement and giving me an enhancement. I couldn't believe it. And then I meet this Swiss banker, and I discover this other miraculous treasure trove of information. So my journey has been a consistent discovery of the incompetence, the cowardice, and the corruption of Washington and the defense contractor and the military class. So I can speak with authority that very few people can. And that's what the American people, American mothers and fathers, American wives and husbands will resonate to when I go and deliver this presentation, when I talk and I've given speeches on it. Americans can't believe it. Like you said, Diane, they can't believe this is their country, this is their government, this is their corruption. But you have to get over that and assume a position of leadership. You have to have a commitment either to engage and do something, or pray that those who are engaging and doing something are protected and successful. Everybody has a role to play. No one should be sitting back and just saying, well, that's nice. Everybody who cares about this country, cares about their citizenry and the global reputation of America, really needs to be praying and involved with this. And September 11th is a great day to do it. We're going out to an event later on today, and we're going to hand out flyers and cards about this issue, and we're going to broadcast it, and we're going to challenge people and say, are you aware of this? If not, now you are. And now that you are, we're asking you to help us do something about it. We'll send some out. We're going to put it on the webpage today in the next couple hours, and the webpage is www.armypsyop.wix.com// Bennett, and I'll write it down here too. And I think you have it, Michael, on your page.
Yes, I do.
And people can print it out, and I'll email it to you too, Mike.
Okay,
And,
I'll make sure that gets out on the website as well, and somewhere, and on Facebook today as soon as we get off this program. Hey Jeff, what do you think that would be the immediate interim solutions now? Scott is doing what he can to talk to some of these politicians and stuff, and for whatever reason, Trump seems to be coming out. And this is kind of a green light. Trump can be held as a hero of the day, just like some of these sheriffs. We got a Sheriff Woods up north that stood beside a man that was told he was going to lose his weapons through the VA because he had had a stroke. There was no threat. So anybody that stands up against these lies and stands up for truth, they become heroes of the day. And I think that if Trump really wants to, I don't know what he did. Did you iterate that to him, Scott? About
yeah. I sent an email today, and I'll send you a copy of it, Mike. And it basically says, look, this issue is coming out. These emails about Hillary Clinton are coming out. This connection to Union Bank of Switzerland and the Clinton Foundation and Donna Shalala and my lawyer David Shalala and Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer and Roger Zackheim. All that's coming out. Mr. Trump has the opportunity to get ahead of it and represent and champion the American people by demanding this issue be exposed. Or he can join the ranks of trying to cover it up or ignoring it, in which case the American people will probably dismiss him and have a venom against him. Because anybody who's informed about this, who doesn't choose the course of exposing it and correcting it, is going to be judged an accessory of it. And we're talking about an accessory to treason and murder.
It's a liability issue.
This isn't intelligence sharing. This is treason and murder.
Jeff, what do you think? What do you think the possibility that Trump may step up to the plate? Do you think that that's a possibility, Jeff?
Well, I think it's a coin toss at this point because it's been my contention all along is knowing and watching Trump's history for a long time, since I spent most of the 90s in New York and working in the financial and in and around various people like Trump at various levels in the Manhattan financial system. What I found is we're gonna get a pretty good read here shortly on exactly whether Donald's truly all in or whether this is just one more narcissistic game that he's playing with everybody here, because it's something that he's really, really good at. And I think this kind of information and the other things that are probably, I would say, flowing into his organization from others than just Scott Bennett to look at and to, I think we're going to get a read here fairly shortly about what kind of person Donald Trump truly is, and whether he's going to be able to step outside himself for once and realize that This situation is much larger than Donald Trump, and that's going to be a real difficult one, I think, for him to encounter. So we'll see. But right now, I wouldn't give it any more than a 50-50 shot because I've seen this happen so many times, and when push comes to shove, it's always you got to have you really have to be very close to the point where you have not too much to lose, or in the alternative, not much they could take away. Okay, if you've protected yourself correctly, in order to proceed with these things. And I've been on this path now for about 30 years, and I've found that there's very it's interesting listening to Scott because a lot of our path has been pretty similar. I've always kept my, through all my corporate consulting work, all my defense systems work, all of the intel and agency work, I was always willing simply to walk away and to maintain my position from the time I was in my 20s, because I recognized very early on that's the only way to keep your own sense of right and wrong and integrity is you have to be willing to walk away. And I have been in each phase of my life throughout my career. Never became beholden to the entrenched interest or to the money. I mean, it's very clear where those transition points occurred in each stage. I kept myself, like Scott, I've kept myself out of their control. The difference is, though, is that you sacrifice certain things in trying to get this knowledge to your fellow citizens, because they go, well, look at you. You're not, why should we believe you over them? And the only answer you have is because if you actually read the information and analyze what's being presented and look and find the truth and the objectivity in the analysis, you'll find that it far and away trounces all of the misdirection and the outright lying that the opposition does in trying to damp down the information that you're presenting. I challenge people over and over and over to find, my book's been out for 3 years now. I have never had a single person come up and be able to either challenge my analysis or challenge the information and the data contained in the book, because I didn't have an agenda except to explain the framework as I observed it and the information that I collected and the malfeasance and fraud and criminal behavior that I noted at each stage along the way was being engaged in by the people in the financial system, in the military-industrial complex, and the political level. And that's what really frightens opponents, is when they don't have any of these hooks into you. I mean, it was when I left Wall Street at the end of the 90s, because as a chief consulting engineer for all these financial companies, I realized we were building this gigantic casino, and I was watching a replay of everything I hated about the defense contracting industry. And so I just decided to terminate my contracts and walk away and provide no more of my talent to these people. And people were astounded. They can't believe that anybody would, they called me the Boy Scout. And I just laughed at them. And I said, it has nothing to do with being naive about the way that the world works. It's actually the opposite. It's about being very familiar with the way that the world works and deciding that that's simply not the world you're going to be a part of. And because it's part of the world that is going to crumble and fall apart at the end of the road. And now you can see the results. It takes time, but virtually nothing that was apparent all the way along, virtually none of it that was apparent is not happening now. And I think that's what's shocking most of the system people and the people who are co-opted and bought into the system, is that they can see it and they can't believe it. And that's why this is exactly the right point that we those of us that wish to maintain our republic and to return the integrity that once existed in this system. Now, and believe me, it's been shrinking for quite a long time. The integrity in this system has been steadily eroding for more than a century. And to return that is not going to be an easy road, and it's not going to be a short road. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think that there's enough of the good existing or remaining in the population that even if it's 5 to 10% of the population, we can overcome our opponents because of the rightness of our position. So I'm not, like I said, it's just a matter of keeping your eye on the prize, as the saying goes, and keeping focused on the goal, and making sure that our priorities are correct as we go down this path. And I think Scott's exactly on the right path. Snowden was on the right path. There's a whole lot of people that are really beginning to zero in like a laser on the real problem and the real solution. And as long as we all keep the heat up and we keep forcing the attention of our local elected officials and booting the ones out that aren't paying attention and aren't focusing and or refuse to focus, as long as we keep that pressure up, we're going to continue to see progress. And again, it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be short, but it is in the end going to be very satisfying.
Well, Jeff, Scott and you are both absolutely correct. It's kind of neat. I have the two professors of intelligence sitting in front of us right now for all the viewers. Liability, Scott, you are absolutely right. All we have to do is say, where will the history books report of what your deeds were, and what kind of liability are you going to hold for future generations? It is not going to go anywhere because the genie is out of the bottle. What do you think? Do you concur with what Jeff's saying about the solutions at hand, Scott?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think he's exactly on the money. He's right on, and it's interesting when he said, people are beginning to be, awoken, and they're beginning to see their whole identity, in a sense, with the United States and government and Americana and the myth of what we thought America was all about. That's all being challenged and exposed by the bad acts and the cover-ups and the true agendas of some of these people, which are all motivated by greed and power. There's nothing virtuous or noble that is intrinsic in their operations. So that is shocking enough to Americans. And when they start to really delve into it and are really confronted with it and are shown it in black and white, like he said about his book, no one could challenge his findings or his documents because it's all true. And his motivation.
It's the same with you and yours. How much challenge have you had on your book there, Scott?
No one has been able to challenge. And they've all run away. The judge in Florida has tried to deny me the opportunity to come back into court it's so offensive to us as Americans because we expect the judge and the courts and the judicial system to protect our rights. And I've discovered in this whole exercise that I've been on that they have covered this up and have sent me motions supposedly in the mail that I never got, and then they use that to say because he didn't respond, we're dropping the case. And I've had to claw and fight my way out of these holes they've kept pushing me into.
I think
to
Jeff
say, wait a minute, you never gave me any document. I never signed anything. You never gave me a motion. And you can't deny me my right to go back into court with this lie that you did serve me something, and because I didn't respond, we're going to cover it up? No. And it's so violating. I mean, words almost escape me when I think about how perverse and corrupt these people are to do that. But one thing I shared earlier is people, as they discover this, really you're going to see people and their true character, their true mettle, because some people will fall apart. Some people will go crazy. Some people will die. Some people will be hospitalized. Like I shared before, one guy got my book from a friend of his, and the guy was put into the hospital. He had such a violent emotional reaction to discover all of this deception or corruption or lies. He just couldn't handle it. He was put in the hospital, probably, stress or anxiety attack or something. And that blew me away when I heard of it. But it rhymes and accords very well with what Mr. Wright just said, that people are really discovering all of this, and it's having a traumatic effect. It's having a very healthy effect. Trauma and stress and combat have very good effects on your mind and your constitution and your physicality that you need to go through to be prepared for the real, future combat situations you encounter. That's why training in the military a lot of times is far more difficult than what you actually encounter on the battlefield. Well, this is our training. What I went through in the cover up and the imprisonment and all that stuff, that was training for me now to go on the field and hold up this banner and say, I dare anybody to come up and challenge me on this. And I'm speaking not for my own name, but I'm speaking for every American citizen to say, here's what they did to me, here's what I discovered, and here's why you need to know about it to protect yourself. I'm doing it out of love for my country, love for my fellow citizens, and loyalty as an Army officer to the Constitution. I didn't swear an oath to Bush or to Obama or to the Republicans or to the conservatives or to the Christian church. I swore an oath to the Constitution and my Maker, who gave me that position. To my Maker first, to the Constitution second. And that's why I go forth and continue this whole battle. It's not for self-advancement. It's for getting this out to the American people, because our country, if we don't stop this and correct this, and if we don't have new leaders rise up into positions of political leadership and military leadership, military needs to hang even worse than these politicians. I understand the politicians being cowardly and castrated in their minds, but military men have no excuse. They should have their patches ripped off their chest and covered in tar and feathers and ran out of the Pentagon for what they did in covering up my reports.
Well, go ahead, Jeff.
That's one I will definitely second there. I've been on that case for a long time since I left the military and the defense structure, is watching the rise of what I call the political officer, and amongst the ranks and the senior enlisted, where perks and benefits and power and prestige became more important to them than the oath they carried to the Constitution. But the other key point that I wanted to express here is the non-ideological nature, of this movement and of this understanding and comprehension that is beginning to grow, that people are beginning to see, especially on, I think, more prevalent at this point on the conservative side, okay, that it's not about the Republican Party. The Republican Party has been completely co-opted, and the establishment, the neoconservative faction of the party and the establishment have been completely co-opted by this, as much as what I call the classic lunchbox Democrats have been co-opted by the progressives and the extreme liberal side of the Democratic Party. I find that there's just as many classic Democrats or lunchbox Democrats that are as upset about what's going on with the progressive movement within the Democratic Party as there are those of us who fall down on the electoral side with Republicans, who are upset with the Republican Party because of the rise of the neocon establishment within and faction within the Republican Party. And I think that This is an American issue.
Yeah.
End to end. This is an American issue, and
Yeah.
and the more we can tear both conservatives and liberals away from the party label, which I think, actually we're seeing here is a very good possibility that both major parties may come very close to self-imploding in this next election, with what Hillary is doing on the Democratic side. There's going to be a huge vacuum there, because that lady is going down from her
Yeah.
criminal behavior. There's absolutely no way, with the amount of evidence that is increasing against her, that she can survive. What Donald Trump is doing in the Republican Party is doing exactly the same thing, because he's literally tearing and slashing away. Whether he's doing it completely consciously or not, at this point, I don't think it really matters. But he is definitely shaken to the core the party power structure amongst the neocons and the establishment, realizing that how easily he did it, which says how fragile it currently is, and how fragile it will remain if they continue along in the same vein, both on the left and the right, of what they've done to American values from the left and the right.
Yeah.
There's this attack from both sides on American values and true Americanism, American exceptionalism. That's one of the things I go. It just makes me furious that of how they've totally distorted, manipulated the concept, the original concept of American exceptionalism in what it was versus what they tried to make it now. And and that is one of the key values that needs to be restored, is the original and true understanding of American exceptionalism in the world. American exceptionalism in the world is not going around and creating wars of opportunity and subjugating foreign governments and manipulating foreign governments and using American power to usurp entire regions. American exceptionalism is exactly the opposite of that, of using that power and strength to cause the productive progression of those regions and those people in concert with the people of the United States, not in conflict with the people of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're exactly right. This is not a Democrat issue or a Republican issue. This is an American issue. This is what George Washington said. There are no interests. There is only the national interest. And do not be involved with squabbles and petty fights and feuds in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, or places like that. Do not get involved and entangled with that, Washington said. And we've seen this complete departure from those principles, and it's a violation of the Constitution. Everything that's been going on with Libya and the war on terror and the Patriot Act, so many blatant violations of the Constitution that, I mean, Rand Paul was the only one who sort of made a symbol to challenge and face this. But we're now seeing the fruits of this neoconservative idolatry of going around trying to conquer the rest of the world and replace its religion and folklore and myths with the religion of neoconservative capitalism and business and government order. And that has caused chaos in the Middle East because they won't accept that. The Muslims have their own religion and culture, and they will never accept capitalism as a replacement for the religious motives. And anyone who understands that, the whole identity, understands it's a wild goose chase from the very beginning to pursue that. But the sad thing is, now we're causing all these people to flee to Europe, and there are now terrorists infiltrated in these refugee swarms going to Europe. And very soon, you're going to see violence, bloodshed, and rapes and things that are going to trigger a right-wing backlash in Europe, starting in the Eastern European countries, that has not been seen since Nazi Germany had its revolutions that brought Hitler to power. And that's all going to be caused by the Muslim exodus into European cultures and countries, because they're not going to tolerate it. They're not going to stand for it. And they're going to react violently. And I think we very well could see another French Revolution quietly, and they're going to side with Russia, because Russia has the most intelligent policy with regards to dealing with these Middle Eastern people and cultures. Leave them alone, and do not let them into your own country. Let them stay in their own country and their own culture. And every European is going to say, you know what? We like that philosophy better than the U.S. philosophy that says open our doors and let all the plague-infested terrorists come in and take over and make Europe, their own enclave. And they won't assimilate, by the way, which leads to anxiety and animosity and fights. So we're triggering a heck of a backlash. It's going to be interesting to see how Donald Trump reacts. But I contacted all these Republicans and Fox News about this whole issue, and not one single Republican, conservative, or Fox News person ever picked this up, ever did anything with it. So they have no right to be in positions of power, and they have no right to be in positions of the media, because they've committed. Here's the legal thing: they've committed misprision of felony and misprision of treason by not making my materials known to the appropriate political authorities and the justice authorities. They've covered it up, and that's another thing that'll hang them eventually. But it's also going to be interesting to see how the American people take this and go and begin to do grassroots engagement with their political leaders, to actually go to their churches, for example, and start a Bible study or a ministry group or a coffee group to say, look at what we've discovered. Look at these books. Look at these men. Look at their materials. Look what's happened to them. Look at the videos they put out. We have an obligation as Christians to make this known. Either, we're in love with the world, or we don't love the world. Either we love and participate with lies, or we hate lies and expose them. Either we're a firefighter with a hose of truth, fighting the fires, or we're standing with our hose on the ground just watching the fire consume our country and our neighbors' homes and families. As for me and my house, I'll be in the fight. I'll be on the field, and I will not back down, and I will not retreat, and I will never be bought off or bribed or seduced by any power or any person on this planet.
Well, guys, both of you have been good soldiers leading the path for others. Always in a day, even back when our founding fathers were fighting the English, it was knowledge and education that led to the creation of this nation. And right now, our job, even as arduous as it is to educate these people. It will eventually show fruition, but this isn't about you, Scott. This isn't about you, Jeff. This isn't about you, Diane. This isn't about me. This is about the future of the nation, of USA and the world. And so here we sit. And the only thing that we can do is call a spade a spade. What are the solutions? Well, gentlemen, you both are leading the charge and asking these questions, making them feel uncomfortable, and it has been effective. Jeff, you have for how long been asking the questions of Benghazi to these politicians, and they think that it's going away? What kind of success do you think you've had so far by challenging them?
Well, very little so far. I mean, I've been doing this since I first started asking the direct questions straight to our congressional delegation here in Idaho. Has been almost 2 years ago. But of course, none of them want to respond. And as we found out as we started asking the questions through TVOI, when the questions became very incisive, they completely clammed up, and that begins to explain why the whole problem is going to be a difficult one to crack, because they're going to close ranks.
Okay.
They're going to protect their turf, and the only way that we can crack through that is just to continue to expose the truth, for more and more people to see what the truth is, and for more and more people to begin questioning their congressional delegation, their local politicians, virtually everybody up and down the chain.
I agree with you, Jeff. And Scott says that he's going to have to leave us. Scott, I sure do appreciate your time and your effort, and I hope to do another program in the very near future. Please keep us updated with what's going on, and keep the good fight up. And we want to hear what Trump has to say. Okay, Scott?
You got it, Mike, and thanks so much for having me on, and I look forward to fighting with you guys. We will win. God's on our side, and the American people are too. Thank you, Mr. Wright. I really appreciate your presence and being in the fight too, and all your producers.
Thank you, Scott, and same to you. I'm sure we've got our work cut out for us, that's for sure. But I in the end, as I say all the time, they can't win.
That's right.
Win because they can't. They neither have the truth, they don't have integrity, they don't actually have an understanding of how things really work. They believe anything and everything can be manipulated forever, and they're going to find out that the physics of truth and integrity always overcome the physics of fraud and deceit.
That's right. The truth. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Well,
thank you.
thank you. You have a good day, Scott, and we'll be talking with you soon.
All right, gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Bye.